Hello guys, this is Natalie Lorraine and welcome to my channel. This is my first time recording on my YouTube channel. I have been hiding, so to speak, behind the scenes and offering my services. I am a clairvoyant empath. I use crystals and soon energy healing to help heal people. A little bit more about myself. I'm 29 years old. Well, 28 years old. I'll be 29 in July. And if you're into signs like that, I'm a Cancer Sun, a Cancer Rising, a Taurus Moon, and a Gemini Venus. So I got a little bit going on there. I'm very into helping people. So I decided to start this channel. I started my business in January, Nia Ashe Healing, same as the name of the channel. And I've been reaching out. I've been giving free readings and just trying to help people transition into different parts of their lives, because as a collective we all can use a little help. And if my gifts that I believe that the universe gave me, the spirits, my ancestors and whatnot gave me, it's my duty to share that with others. So this video is about how to recognize if you yourself are also a healer, because a lot of times over the years since I was younger, I always felt that there was a pull. I always felt like this innate need to help heal people, and I always just thought like it had a lot to do with my upbringing and how I was always around people that wanted to help people, like my mom. And as I got older and I kind of ventured out on my own, I realized that it was, yes, a little bit of nurture, but a lot nature. This was my true calling. And I kind of went the traditional route with my healing abilities. I tutored throughout school. In college, I taught private violin lessons in college as a side hustle. And after college, I taught math, I've taught English, and I've tutored as well on the side as a private business. And I also taught special education, both inside the classroom and outside the classroom, as a direct professional and a behavior therapist. So I've done a little bit of it all, and it wasn't up until this year where I realized that it was time for me to let go of the traditional path that I was on. I finished my master's last year around September, as this is the same time that I moved to New Orleans. And I realized then that the job that I had, this was kind of like my last straw in the working field. And I actually rewind a little bit. Went overseas in after college. I graduated in 2013. I went to Florida to do a year of service through AmeriCorps. And then after that, I went abroad to teach English in South Korea. Now, South Korea, I would say that's when my spiritual journey truly began. And in that year, being away from everything that I knew and everything that I grew up with, it forced me into this reflective mode. And I spent time writing in my journal, reading, and really trying to detach from a lot of the belief systems that I had acquired up until that age, which I was like, I had just turned 24, I think, when I left for Korea. So that's when I knew that something was changing. This is when I started getting messages from my ancestors and the universe and deities. I hadn't kind of figured out who was talking to me, but I knew it wasn't malicious. And I kind of reached out to my mom, because my mom is in that, she is into that as well. And I kind of like, I don't know if you guys experience this, but I wanted to experience it on my own. So I knew that what my mom was into wasn't bad, and I had an interest, but I didn't want to be into it just because she was into it. I wanted to have my own path, and I wanted to be invested by my own accord. So it wasn't until that year in South Korea where I was like, hey, listen, I'm getting into this. This is when I started meditating a little bit more. I started seeking out advice, now research, advice essentially, and information to try to consume myself. So, like many people, when you get to a certain place, and this is kind of like how we can step backwards. I got to a place where I was so elevated from where I was when I left that instead of keeping in line with the elevation and using it for good, and to come home and um continue that momentum and meet people that were aligned, more spiritually aligned with I was, I decided to do what I see a lot of people do, is I decided to keep myself in environments that weren't nurturing to the new person that I was. And I almost like tested myself, like, oh well, this new level, so I'm gonna put myself with my friends and just try to, I it was kind of, I wanted to conform. I wanted to be the new person, but I still wanted to fit in with my old friends, and that didn't work. And through the process of that, I ended up marrying someone that I should have never married. And that was also kind of like a test, like, oh well, I got these new spirituality, so this person, I can make this work because blah blah blah. Completely messed up frame of thought that I was in. And if any of you know, I'm not going to get onto a long tangent on this. Maybe spirits will guide me to talk about this in the future. But I married a person with narcissistic personality disorder. And if you know anything about individuals that have this disorder, it is no joke. These people, and I mean this in the most sincere way, they are not human. I know that sounds very bad to say, but it's like they act from a deep seated wound, and they cannot give love, and in the same return they cannot receive love. And it's really sad now that I'm far removed. I've been divorced. I've been separated, well, divorced for a year now, actually a year this month in March. But I have been separated, in my mind divorced, since the day I left in late October of 2016. So for me, this is like going on the, this is going to be at the end of this year my third year being separate from this person. But that is the second stage of my spiritual awakening, and I don't regret the experience. I wish I would have listened to myself when I was away, but it was like when I was away in South Korea, that I should just keep going and surround myself with people that were more spiritually aligned instead of testing myself. And I had done this so many times in my life before, where I would get elevated and then I'd be like, oh, I'm this new person, let me go test myself to see if I'm really ready for a said situation. And I know life will do that on its own, but it's almost like I know better than the universe. I'm just gonna test myself. And those tests never ended up well for me. Those were unnecessary tests. So I would say that to anybody who feels like they're moving in a different step in their spirituality, do not test yourself. The universe already has that lined up, and it doesn't hurt nearly as much as when you throw yourself into a test. They'll come and you'll knock them out if they're destined for those tests to come, but do not test yourself. So long story short, during that period when I finally realized, this relationship is unhealthy, it's codependent, it's all types of wrong for me in my life, and I reach to another level of my spirituality. Because when you're in a situation that is attacking you from all levels, attacking your soul, attacking your spirit, attacking all the good in you, you have no choice but to I'm a Cancer, so I created a shell around me, and that shell was my spirituality. And so this is when I really started getting really deeper into talking to my ancestors and having doing protection spells and reaching out to other people and seeing what I can do, because that relationship I knew I had to leave. And I had to find resources enough to make me strong enough to leave. And I did leave. I left with my life, which in a lot of situations like that, that is, people are not fortunate. I left with no attachments to this person and whatnot. But that was the second stage. And I was like, okay, I am done with testing myself in this regard. Because, and I had been giving small tests about not giving more of myself to someone than they were giving me, but I didn't see it that way. And I guess, like they always say, you won't see something for what it is until you're ready to see it for what it is, and that is holds true. Like, I saw a little bit, but I was like, maybe I'm tripping. But anyways, I said I didn't want to get on a long tangent, but I guess Spirit guided me to give that message to someone. If you are experiencing anything, or you're in a relationship with someone who you believe that has narcissistic personality disorder, you can reach out to me through email. You can reach out to me on my channel. I will definitely talk to you, because it is a type of experience like no other, and a lot of people in your life will not understand what you're going through. And I can say I lived through it, I'm survived it, and I'm a much stronger person, and I try my best that I'd never want to experience that type of relationship ever again. And if you need someone to talk to, like I said, I'm not a licensed therapist or anything. While I have, people call me their therapist, I will talk to you as best as I can, and then hopefully that you have in a therapist or someone else that's more qualified than I am to truly help you through that. But I can be a listening ear and give you advice about how I got through it, and hope that that will help you. Okay, off of that topic, where was I going with that? Okay, that was the second part of my spiritual awakening. After that, I honestly was a new person. Like, this is when I was committed to breaking down all of the behavior patterns that I had acquired, my codependent behavior through my childhood, learning how to create boundaries. And the universe kept putting people in my life that helped me along that path. I started teaching, this video, I'm gonna have to change the title of this video. I started teaching, well, no, I guess it's still going to be tell you how I knew I was a healer. It's just taking you through my life, especially for people who know more about me. I'm always like, people always want to tell you at the end part, but they never want to tell you the journey to it. Well, I'm going to be as transparent as I can. I started teaching at this charter school, and the co-teacher or the head teacher in my classroom, she was a godsend. She was someone who I looked up to. She was in her late 30s, and she had kind of gone through her own trenches, and she was the person who introduced me about setting hard boundaries. And when I tell you, that was life-changing, learning how to set boundaries, because a lot of us, we think we have strong boundaries, but then, we don't. Some of us, can't speak for everyone. You tell somebody no, but they can kind of convince you to say yes. That's not having a strong boundaries. Or just doing things, extending yourself to other people because of obligation and not of true want. And that's another thing. But long story short, she helped me through that, and then I got to decided that it was time for me to find another job, because that was kind of like, I started working with another situation that helped me in my spiritual journey. I started working for started working with a family with an autistic child. I'm not going to give too much information, but the mother of my client was into spirituality as well, and she helped me. We kind of bonded, and we would share stories, and she would kind of help me. She was more on the Wiccan side, but I mean, they're all sharing the same energy, and she helped me a lot. So it's like I kept getting women in my life who were not of the same color as me, but had so much wisdom to give me. And so after that, during that time period, I got the call that I needed to move to New Orleans. And this is what I'm talking about, like spirit guiding you. It was like every situation, every person I met, it's like I elevated higher and higher, and it was put upon me like, you're gonna be a healer. And I was like, well, I'm already a healer because I work in education and I work with special needs kids and I do X, Y, and Z. And I were like, no, you're gonna be a healer, like alternative medicine, holistic living type of healing, like. And I'm like, sorry guys, I'm like, okay, how's that gonna work? And so I just started, I don't even know how I got on searching for New Orleans. I feel like I was helping, one of my friends is getting married, and anytime one of my friends getting married, I get onto this, like, planning this wedding that I haven't had. You know, you get, some women know what this is like I'd had no boyfriend at the time. I was just researching stuff like, well, I would be nice to get married in New Orleans. And I would start researching New Orleans, and it was like, no, you need to move to New Orleans. And so instead of, like, old me would have been like, oh, this is crazy, I don't know anybody in New Orleans, I don't know what the job market is like that, and this, that, and the third. But Spirit was like, listen, if you don't get your black behind to New Orleans ASAP. And so what I did was I just started researching. I started researching the logical, I'm a little bit type A personality. I started researching and seeing if there was if the job market was good, because I'd heard, you know, post Katrina, that the job market was not the best, and that it might be tough for me to live there, because at this point, that all the income that all the ways that I paid my bills was through a formal job. So I had not quite made that transition to becoming a full-time healer. And honestly, at that point, I wasn't fully ready to let go, but I knew that I needed to go to New Orleans, and the logical part of me was like, I gotta get a job. So what I did was I put in a 2 months notice with my job. Yeah, I 2 months, because the job that I had, I was the sole employee working with my client, and I really cared about them, and I've been working with them for almost 2 years, and I didn't want to go, but I knew I needed to go. And they were oddly supportive of me. They, you know, of course they didn't want me to go, but they were like, we want you to continue to grow, you're a great person, you're destined for things, and, you know, we wish you the best. And that's how I knew it was destined for me to go, because it seemed like everything was kind of falling into place for me to go and make this next transition of my life. So I put in a 2 months notice, and then I just started crunch time, started figuring out, trying to settle all my bills in the second and third. But I had made in my mind that I was going to New Orleans with or without a job. Now, I didn't tell a lot of people that, but that's how determined I was to go. And I mean, it was crunch time. I left my job September 15th. That was my last day, but I was like, giving myself that week to move out of my apartment, and then being in New Orleans by like October 1st. So I wanted to give myself some time to kind of enjoy my family and friends, kind of wrap things up, and then be on my way. Well, the job pulled through. The job that I ended up having when I moved to New Orleans pulled through around, I think on the 15th or the 16th, they finally was like, hey, listen, you have a job. Your start date is September 27th. I was like, oh, I was so relieved. And so that worked out. The job was, honestly, I can say this now, I wasn't 100% thrilled about this job, but the job made enough money for me to be like, okay, I can survive. It's not as, I was actually taking a pay cut because of what I was making here in North Carolina. I was taking a pay cut, but I was like, well, it's the deep South. It'll probably balance itself out with like rent and grocery or something else. So it's like, I'll absorb that, $2 pay cut an hour. But I get down there, and craziness also. That same week that I moved to New Orleans was the same week as my, what do you call them? I can't even think of the name of them right now. My final exams for my master's program. And if anybody has taken any type of graduate level program, you know those exams are no joke. My degree was in management, and my qualifying exams were 5 hours long, maybe a little bit longer. It's funny, it's like my brain has blocked that part because it was like abuse. It was straight torture. Torture I signed up for. But my exams were that week, and honestly, if I could go back, I would not plan. I thought it was going to be simpler. I thought it would be fine. I thought my move to New Orleans would be a smooth transition. Yeah. Anyways, I finished my exams. I'm not going to go into it, but I had a nervous breakdown during the middle of the exam. But I finished the exams. And, I started the job. So, I'm doing my exams are the same week as I start my job, so training and whatnot. So it was like information overload. I had to remember 5 years of graduate program stuff and type them out into 10 pages per topic or something like that. Man, I really cannot remember that. It's like I pumped it and I dumped it, okay? But it was stressful. I passed my exams, flying colors. I was so nervous. And that was like, in my mind, I was like, if I can do this, if I can move to a new city, if I can do training at a new job and finish the hardest exam I've ever taken my whole entire life, then I can do anything. And New Orleans, honestly, was not an easy ride once I got there. I had struggled finding housing. The place that I looked for, contacted the girl through Craigslist, or no, it was Facebook Marketplace. And I didn't like the neighborhood. I'm real big on vibes. The people were nice. She was nice. Everything was nice. The apartment was newly renovated, but it just did not feel right. And I'm like, it's cheap. It was like $350 a month. In hindsight, I'm like, maybe I should have taken that apartment because I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. But that's neither here nor there. So, didn't take that apartment. I moved in to like a extended stay while I was looking for a place, and I found another lady on Facebook Marketplace who was like $600 a month. It was a nice neighborhood, and she seemed nice enough. She was spiritual as well. I met her. I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool. So I moved in, and luckily, everything was fine for a little bit, but it was just a lot of stuff going on where I felt like I need to leave that situation as well. So this is when I didn't have a backup plan. I was just like, I was telling my boyfriend at the time, he lives in New Orleans. I met him actually before I moved to New Orleans. It's funny, a lot of people ask me like, oh, did you move down for your boyfriend? I'm like, no. I met him through a dating app on my way to New Orleans, and he wasn't crazy, so we're still dating to this day. So, anyways, like, he didn't understand. Like, he's a semi-spiritual person. So it was just like, he was kind of looking at me like I'm crazy, and he's a Libra. If you know anything about Libras, they're all logical. So when I'm like, hey, I feel like I need to move out of this apartment, like this lady's house this week, he's like, are you sure you're not overreacting? I'm like, no. I gotta go. So I left. I couldn't find anything. I was, first Facebook Marketplace trying to find things, and it just fell through. So I ended up staying in some hostels. Thank God New Orleans has hostels, because a lot of places do not have them, but since they're like a major tourist area, they have them all over the place, and they're fairly cheap. But it was not fun. I lived in this hostel situation. I would like pay for it by like 4 days at a time so I could have money and stuff like that. Like, I mean, and my mom, God bless her, she was just like, come home. Because all of this stuff I can see now as a mother, now that I'm kind of out of that, I can see how she was just like, my baby is unnecessarily struggling. But I felt like it was part of my journey, and I needed to struggle this way because that let me know how determined I was to get through the situation. So I lived in a hotel basically for about a month. Yeah, when I say moved out at the end of October. And yeah, a month, because I signed my lease November 26th. So it took me a month, and I was like, thank God. I moved into this house, this apartment, 1 bedroom apartment. It was nice, hardwood floors. Wasn't in the best neighborhood, but it allowed me to relax just a tad. That was one less thing. But then it's like, so, ooh, what was that? I don't know what that was. I don't know. It scared me. It seemed like a bird, but I don't see no bird down there. I might have saw a spirit or something. I don't know. Anyways, it allowed me to relax. I'm like, oh, thank God. I can relax now. I have a place to stay. The universe was like, not quite, sis. So now that I have a place to stay, now my job started acting up with their ass. Now I was behavior therapist, and so we work with clients in the school setting, the home setting, and the clinical setting. Like we had a clinic. And so ideally, I told them, I was one of the people that I was like, listen, give me all the hours that you got. That was because I knew that this job was prone to cancellations, that, they made it seem like, oh, if you have a cancellation, we'll just have you fill in here, this, that, and the third. We have plenty of clients, all this jazz. So I was like, okay, cool. But then, like, the client that I had that was my full-time client, my Monday through Friday client in the schools, she just started canceling left and right, canceling left and right. So it was some weeks where I was like, listen, like, and when she canceled, I would get paid for being there. Like, if she would, it was only if it was same day. So it was just like, if you didn't, if she canceled, it's just funny. They had to cancel same day for you to get paid, but it wasn't your full pay. It was like 3/4 of your pay, which is something. But when you're a single woman living in a new city with, bills, I didn't have a lot of bills, but my rent was my biggest thing. Like, I need to make my rent money. So they were like, oh, my hair is crazy. They were like, okay, well, they had me fill in. They had me fill in here. They had me fill in there. And then it was like, oh, then the fill in stopped. Oh, we don't have anything for you. Now, mind you, I was doing all this. They started when I moved out of my apartment. They started with this craziness. So I was living in a hotel, didn't tell them, and still doing all this crazy hours. I thought, like, once I got my apartment, it was settled down. It got worse. And then, they gave me another client. They kept me on that client for a long time. And it was just like, I was looking at the money that I was making, and I was like, this is not worth it. And this is when I started, like, really evaluating, like, is this the universe telling me it's time to move on? But I was so stubborn because I had realized that I had spent my entire career, being proud of what I did for work. Like, I'm still an educator, but when people ask me what you do, and I was like, oh, I'm an educator, and now I was like, I'm a behavior therapist, and a lot of people didn't know what that was, but it sounded cool and it sounded prestigious, and I was so proud. I was like, yes, I finally have a title that people can respect. And I realized that I shouldn't be like that, because my title is not who I am. That, honestly, is only a small part. I keep seeing things flying around. I don't know what's going on outside. And so it was like the universe was shifting, like, are you prepared? It was almost like, are you prepared to leave everything on? I mean, I just graduated with a master's degree, so my family's like, well, what are you going to do next? And my next step was naturally become a behavior analyst. That's what I thought. But then I started working in the field, and I was like, I don't know if I can be a behavior analyst. Not that I wasn't capable of. I knew they had a hard exam to pass. All that was nothing. I was like, listen, I can do this. It was just the work. I'm like, does this allow me to be the best version that I could be? And it was like, no. It's like, am I willing to not, it seemed at that point, throw away, let's see, 9 years of education, so to speak, in order to do something different. And I was just like, yeah. So I was just like, sure. So I decided that, I kind of knew that things were going to work out, and I was still kind of hesitant. I was like, what's going to happen here? But the hours kept getting lower and lower, and problems in the clinic just kept getting crazier and crazier. and I just felt like I had no energy. I knew that I wanted to become a healer in a more alternative way. So I was like, I'm going to have to learn how to, give psychic readings or tap into my abilities, read people's energy, all this stuff. But honestly, I worked from 7 to 7 every day. Like, I wasn't at work at 7, but the commute to my job took up 12 hours of my day and only got paid for maybe 8 of it. It was crazy. So by the time I got home, I didn't have time. All I had time to do was like eat, maybe watch one TV show, talk to my boyfriend, hang out with my boyfriend, drink some beer or something like that, and go to sleep. I had no energy. So I was like, something's got to give. So around January is when it was like, one or two things is going to happen, because I started like becoming disengaged in my job. I knew that my time there was limited, and it started to show all in my whole body language. And I'm naturally a person that's, I don't want to cuss too much on this channel, but I have resting bitch face, so I look like I'm pissed even when I'm not. But on top of that, the body language, like, a lot of people read me wrong, so to speak. It's like an armor. And I was giving them more of that. But this time it wasn't resting bitch face. This time it was true disappointment. Like, why am I here? Why am I giving these people all of my time, all of my energy, and they don't care about me? Because I was spoiled. The job I came from North Carolina, like, those people loved me, okay? Like, I still consider them a part of my family. And when I had problems with my family here, when I had to change my schedule, oh, no problem. When I needed more hours, they made it work. And it was just like, now I knew in my mind that all employers weren't like that, but it was like going from night to day. When I went back to like corporate America, so to speak, they were like, girl, we don't care about you. We just want you to give us everything, and we give you a little something. So it was like, two things are going to happen. They're going to fire me. Which I have not been fired from a job. Not since high school, I want to say. I got fired from the job. And it wasn't even like me doing something crazy like, like stealing or being rude to a customer. It was just something like I missed a shift or something, and they fired me. Like, it was really weird. But like I said, that was high school, so I have not been fired. I've been working, I've left jobs, but I've never been fired. So I got to the point where they're gonna fire me because I'm so disengaged, or I'm gonna quit. And so it got to the point where they pulled me off a case because they didn't feel like I was a good fit, and the parents of the client didn't feel like it was a good fit. So I was like, oh, they're going to fire me. But no, they didn't do that, because a lot of places will not fire you because they don't want you to get unemployment. What they will do is they will create an environment for you to quit on your own, because then they can say you quit. So that's basically what it came down to. I was like, okay, they pulled me off this case. I'm like, well, I need another case. I would prefer a school case. And they were like, we don't have anything. And I'm like, what do y'all want me to do? Oh, thanks for being so patient. We don't know when we're going to give you another client. We don't know when we have a client, because I like dealing with older kids. I love children, but children that are not in school, like 5 and under, they're really not my thing. They require a lot of attention and energy, and I can do it short term. And of course, some kids to me, like my niece and nephew, cousins, whatnot, but that's really not where I thrive. I thrive with school-age kids. That's why I always taught older kids, middle school, high school. I can do elementary, as long as you can use the bathroom on your own, and you can talk in full sentences and understand yes and no. It's hard to explain, but school-age kids, 5 and up, honestly, ideally it's like 10 and up, like almost in middle school through high school, but whatever. So they're like, we don't have any of those kids for you. And I'm looking at them like, these people they're pulling my leg. They're trying to get me to quit. So I let it ride for a little bit, and I did social, like, I need to pay my rent. Like, I have to pay my rent. And eventually Spirit was like, I started my business. I started Nia Shay in January, like mid-January. And at that point, I was not even getting any paid people. I was just giving out free readings because I knew I had a gift, but it's almost like I didn't believe my gift was as strong as it was. And I gave out like 40 free readings that month in January. I know. And every time I gave a reading, I was expecting someone to like cuss me out or tell me, oh, you're a fraud, like call me on some Miss Cleo stuff. But every time I gave a reading, people were like, oh my God, how did you do that? How did you do that? And it was like every time I was waiting for someone to say, you're wrong, you don't have no gift, or this, that, and the third. But it never happened. So eventually I was just like, I have a gift. It's funny, like, you know, you have one. Like, I've always told people, like, well, I can feel things. I was always pride myself being an empath. I can feel people, this, that, and third. Being an empath is one thing, but being able to like read people's energies and tap it and see visions in your head, that's a whole nother ball game. Okay. And so I was like, okay, this is real. So I was like, I gotta do something. So I put in my 2 week notice. No, my 3 week notice, because February 1st was coming up. And if you know anything, I'm a alumni of North Carolina A&T State University. And February 1 is a big date. It's the Woolworth sit-ins, and it's the beginning of, Black History Month. And I was like, yes, if I'm gonna quit something, I'm gonna quit it on Black History Month. So I put in a 3 week notice, and I said I'm quitting on the start of Black History Month because I'm like that. So basically, I knew that it was time. And I tried to, that week before I quit, it was really back and forth. Honestly, very restless nights. I could not sleep. I was going to my altar. I was praying. I was doing everything I could. I was sleeping with all types of crystals under my pillow, trying to cleanse my energy. I'm like, what is it? And it was eventually like, you got to quit this job. And I was like, but I mean, I liked it. I had one client now that I liked, and I was like, no, because I need rent. And I was thinking in my head, you do the calculations, like if I keep one part-time client, then it will soften it up for my business. And Spirit was like, no, you got to let go of the entire job. I'm like, all of it? All of it. So I put in the 3 week notice, and just like I thought, they like decreased my hours. They started like, oh, we always have someone to fill in, like you can get called in, and then they wouldn't call me in. So those last 2 weeks, I basically didn't work. If I didn't already have a client that was in the day not in the daytime, I already have a client that was like 10 hours a week. That's all I had, 10 hours a week. It was crazy. And that's when I started freaking out, like, how am I going to pay my rent? So long story short, I quit. But I never regretted this decision. And even to this day, I'm still kind of going through like chips or whatnot. But I don't regret my decision because I know it was so strong. Like, I felt like I've done a lot of not listening to my core, to my gut, to the ancestors, spirits, the universe, whatever you want to call it, whoever talks to you. And it never has ended up well when I didn't listen. I always had to go through the long way when I didn't have to. So I was like, this time, even though it sounds insane, I'm gonna listen this time. And I quit my job. And I mean, as soon as I put in my notice, and my supervisor would come and see me, and she was just like, Natalie, you're like glowing. Like, I was glowing, guys. Like, for real. Like, the sun, like my whole core was like, you are about to detach from this matrix, detach from all these things that you built up to believe that you had to do, societal standard, whatever. It was like, my core was like, yeah, we out this piece. Like, we only got 3 weeks in here. I mean, I was the best at my job in those 3 weeks because I knew it was temporary. And I was like, that's sad. I was like, how? I know I'm good at what I do, and I know I love kids, and I know I've had parents tell me that I'm good at what I do, but it was just time to go. So that's when I knew, like, when other people around me were telling me, like, you're glowing, like, what's going on? Like, and even some people, because I'm of age, they're like, are you pregnant? I'm like, no, I'm not pregnant. And it was really just me answering my call. And I knew it was what I was supposed to do. So I would also say, don't ignore that feeling. And it can be tough because we live in a world where people like things to make sense. Even me. as I'm a very impulsive person as a Cancer, I go on my emotions, but I still like things to make sense. Like even some emotions I don't feel, I like to be able to justify them with words, because not everybody, vibes off of, oh, that doesn't feel right. I want to be like, it didn't feel right because X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes you're not going to have that. This video is getting really long, but it's cool. I'm going to probably um, change the title of the video. But ooh, excuse me. I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. What was I saying? Oh, I got somewhere to be at 7. I need to wrap this up. Just listen to it. I left my job. Money started coming in. I had a little bit, strategic. I had enough, and I fumbled. And when I tell you where I fumbled, I trusted the universe, but then I still didn't. So I guess I could say I didn't trust the universe. What I did was, and if anybody knows about this, I held on to money that I should have let go of. And so I had money in my account. I was making money through side hustling, doing Instacart, and I had money coming in. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be good. Clients started coming, but they weren't coming as fast as it was. I mean, it's only a month in. I didn't expect like overnight be fully booked, but I was like, well, at least 2 books in a week. It wasn't coming in. It's getting cold. It wasn't coming in the way I wanted to, but I was still making money, so I'm like, I'm good. Then I filed my taxes. My tax money came back. I had enough money to pay my rent and my car payment. But because I was so scared and I did not trust the universe, I held on to that money. And they always say scared money don't make no money, right? So, long story short, because I was scared, things started to tumble. And I had, and during that time, I didn't have the money to pay my rent because some other bill I had to pay, also scared, because they were like, listen, we gonna take your shit. So I was like, oh no, please don't take it. And I put that bill over my rent, and it just spiraled. So I was like, I gotta leave. And this was like, I would say, the lowest part of my life, because a lot of times I don't see where I went wrong, but this is the one time where I was like, on this day, at this hour, I made a B decision and I should have made an A decision, and this is what caused it spiral. But I was like, in the grand scheme of things, I'm gonna get through it. My mom was not feeling well, and it just was like, I need to go back home. I was like, it just perfectly lined up. And so I'm back at home in North Carolina for, I don't know how long I'm gonna be here, honestly. It doesn't feel like I'm gonna be here like long term. It feels like it's a pit stop. But I'm so fortunate that I have parents, that have a house, actually have a spare bedroom for me to stay in, and I can have, some privacy, because I'm almost 30, and I've lived on my own since I was like 19 years old. Since college, I've lived on my own. After, dorms and whatnot, I moved only the first year I lived on campus. Every other year I've lived in my own apartment. And so that's important to me, to have that, that space for myself. And so I have that, and not having to pay rent, not what I was paying in New Orleans, has definitely given me some ease. And I'm at a point where this is a true test of how trusting I am of the universe. And this video was originally supposed to be about how you know you're an empath, but I'm just going to use this as an intro about just following your calling. So I want to say, I'm going to do the 5 at the end. 5 signs that you might be a healer. And speak from experience, you see people share their life stories with you without you asking them to. That has happened to me my entire life. People will just be, and I'm, mind you, resting bitch face. So I don't understand, like, why people that see that I supposedly are not approachable, they will sit beside me and I'll be nice. And then they just start telling me like, oh, my husband left me and I really don't know what I'm gonna do. Or it doesn't have to be stuff that big, but they will just tell me their whole life. And I'll just be like, what did I do? What part of this conversation prompted you to tell me all that? That's the first sign. People are very open with you. They share your life. Two, and that's also like advice giving. People come to you for advice, and you help them, whether they listen to your advice or not, because a lot of people come to you for advice, and while you may give them the best advice, they may not follow it. But that's not the point. The point that they came to you, they trust you for some type of source of information, is a sign that you may also be a healer. 3, you can feel out energy in a room. Like you can feel like you walk into a room and you can be like, what's the best way? You can tell if the energy is positive or negative. And this a lot of people can do this, but more so like you can figure out what happened. Like you can know if there was a person, like there was a fight beforehand, or if there's tension between people. That's another sign. 4, I would say you're very in tune with nature, or you feel more at peace when you're with nature. Animals, I would say, and possibly small children. I love being around small children, so to speak, but taking care of them in like in a job sense, no. But their innocence and how they are, like if I would be around kids just for fun, sure, no problem. Having to do work with them, like teach them things and be on the clock, no, not young kids, even though they like me. And I would say 5, you might be a healer if you don't fit in with whatever job that you do. You feel the pull to like do something greater. Like, I know for me, I always wanted to heal people. If that is the course of your life, like you might be in a healing type business like education or social work. A lot of healers get stuck there because they take the traditional route. So if you know that your purpose is to heal people, but the job you're in doesn't fulfill you, you might be a healer. And also I would say you might be a healer, or on your step to your path, is you start seeing a whole bunch of synchronicities. Like you wake up early morning between the hours of 11, really they say 3 to 5. 3 to 5 is like spiritual awakening hours, but every hour from like 11 to like 7 a.m. the next day, they have meanings. But those are the top ones. And I just say that to say the universe has a calling for all of us. I believe in God as well. But I like to use universe for people who are not into like deities and stuff like that. But the universe has a higher calling for all of us, and a lot of times we sell ourselves short. So I want you to not sell yourself short, because if you tap into whatever you're supposed to do in this world, you will never regret it. Like I said, I'm back at home at 29, living with my parents. I said I would never come after it. Last time I stayed with my parents was going through my divorce, and I was like, this is it. I'm back. But it still feels right. It still feels like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I was like, even though I technically don't have a job right now and money is real funny, I would rather be here than working a job that I know does not fulfill me. I know my purpose is so strong. I know this is just the down and the up, the down. This is the down part. This is the character building part that's going to prepare me for the next part. My blessings, they right around the corner. I can feel it. But do not deny yourself your true potential. So, my name is Natalie Lorraine. I will be uploading videos Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I would say Mondays is going to be more so, I think Monday, I wrote it down. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'll decide what they're going to be soon. Um, but I also offer readings. You can find them on Nia Ashay Healing. It's my Facebook page. I'm going to put the links. I think they are in the description box. You can email me. You can follow me on Instagram. Same thing, but it's nia.ashay.healing. nia.eshe.healing. And then my website for booking is, I don't think there's any, no, there's no dots. Nia Ashay Healing .as.me. So I look forward to it. I'm finally stepping out of the behind the shadows. My friend Conjure Queen, I'm gonna put her link. She lives in New Orleans, and we met up last week through Instacart on some synchronicity stuff. We hung out, and she was just like, you need to start your channel, you need to do it. So I'm listening to her and the ancestors speak through her, and I'm starting it. So I'm excited to see what this journey will be like. And thank you all. I hope this video was able able to help you if you're considering any stage of your life, whether it's healing or anything else. Just giving my personal story about how we all are being called, and we just have to listen even when it feels tough. So thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you for clicking on this video. If you could like and subscribe and share. And I'm going to put all my social media tags in the description. And I look forward to seeing you guys on Monday. Bye.